Hello guys, today is still 1st of October 2021, right? And I've just finished recording the video about the Brexit issues, shortages and shit like this in UK. So for this video, I'd like to make the same warning he said it there, which is, and also to YouTuber Checker, outright I say that this video is not really aimed at anybody under 18. It's some swearing, quite a bit of swearing. It's going to be offensive and swearing. So, not as much as people might expect, but nevertheless. So, if you're under 18, if you're easily offended, or if you have a mental age of an 8-year-old, please don't really watch this video. You know, just leave it. If you think that you can handle it, if you think you can handle some offensiveness and some swearing, that please welcome to my video blog. Really more of a, like, I don't know, a journal of different thoughts which probably nobody's gonna watch. And today I wanted to talk a bit more about capitalism versus market economy, right? And it's always interesting because I always end up arguing with people on both sides, both on the left and on the right. So whenever you argue with people who talk about capitalism and they say, well, communism is bad, socialism is bad, whatever ism is bad, they always forget that capitalism is also an ism. Okay, it's not something magical, it's a capitalism, it's an ism. Right? Apparently it's bad according to them, but they always tend to forget about that it's an ism as soon as we start talking about capital. Right? Usually it's the people who have done reasonably well for themselves, right? And those like, and they always tell you, look, capitalism is brilliant, capitalism is great, and capitalism equals market economy. And I really started to hate when they do this. And at some point of time, I also made this mistake. It's, I think, quite often for many people who have not actually delved into study of economics, who have not actually delved into study of history and things like this, right? Understanding of how things work, right? So they really caught on this phrase, which has been come from us probably from somewhere like 70s, 60s, 80s, where people say that capitalism equals market economy and socialism equals dictatorship, whatever. Right? And I came across this kind of ignorance as well, because I really kind of, for some time, and just recently kind of came to me that, well, actually they're not the same, right? And just recently I was having a conversation with someone and they said, well, we were talking about how there's like lots of socialist solutions in Germany, Austria, like Finland, Netherlands, France, and many other European countries. They like have very strong socialist like underpinning. And they said, we were talking about, like, that automatically equating socialism to dictatorship is a fallacy in its own right. And then they went like, well, actually, but all these countries you named, they are actually capitalist countries. And I was like, well, actually, no. Actually, they are democratic countries, so they're democracies with highly developed market economies, right? But they're underpinned by very cleverly designed socialist, the solutions. So just recently, the example I gave those people, which came across me, is an example of how the social housing is done in Austria. Very similar system to the way social housing is being done in Germany, for example, but at least in Berlin, not all of Germany, but in Berlin, where the government gives the money. They say, look, we want to have a housing in here which is going to be like for people to use. And what they do is they invest into this housing, but they pass on the housing to housing associations, right, which are in charge of controlling this housing. Or so they pay for the building, they invest the money, they invest into infrastructure, but it's the housing associations, the private entities, which are in charge of running those buildings, but also like they're limited at them how much profit they can make from them. So the government says, look, we expect you to cover these expenses, and kind of, we're not expecting you to do more than 10% of profit, right? And obviously the government can invest on a very long term. So these building projects, they last for 50, 60 years, before they're gonna have to be removed. And this way government actually saves lots of money. So it makes sense. So, but they're not doing it by being a government building company. They actually hire private building companies, private companies to do so. Like they go to the market and say, hey guys, we're looking for the best price with the best options. And if you feel you can give it to us, then we'll go with you. So it's the market, but it's for a very social underpinning. Right? And when I said this to them, like, the person like went ballistic on me. He said, look, I don't want to talk about this anymore because it's all capitalist. Well, it's not. As a matter of fact, market economy is not part of capitalism. Right? And market economy also existed I lived in Soviet Union. So for me, I've lived in Soviet Union. It's a bit of a distant memory. I only was there as a kid, but it's was interesting as a system which existed. Okay, so right, I've made a program about made a video about fall of Soviet Union, but for me it's always interesting, more like a historical system which existed, just to see like what was good, what was bad, why has it failed, what has failed, and things like this. And so you're looking at this, but if you look at this Soviet Union, there was actually market economy in Soviet Union as well. It's just that it wasn't on a high level, it was on a low level. For example, if you went, like, it started all the way from school. If you graduated from school with good grades, you had opportunities to go to a good university, right? The universities would have, like, if you study any profession, right, people talk about how it was free education in Soviet Union. Well, actually, it wasn't free in education in Soviet Union. You had to pay for your education by spending 3 to 5 years working on a contract for a particular company in the profession you have learned. So if you learned to be a teacher, you would have to work in a school, right? But the difference was that depending on your grades, you had either wider choices or smaller choices of where you would go. So, for example, if you studied to be a teacher, right? Even if you managed to go through your school very well, you went to the top university, for example, in Moscow, which would seem to give you like much better options. But if during your university years in Moscow you have dropped the ball and you did not complete the university with as higher grades as you should, then your choice of schools went from like being able to choose cool schools in Moscow. You could be told, well, actually, you can just choose out of village Ivanovo in the middle of Siberia to the village of Ivanovo in the middle of Alaska, or was it? Well, Alaska's in US, but in the middle of far north, like like near Vladivostok, right? And because your grades are not very good, bro, sorry, you don't get the choice, right? And depending on how well you did, obviously, with the more better grades, the more wider opportunities you had. Right, so that's as Dr. Peterson, I think, says it. It's like hierarchy of competency. Right, so if you're competent, you get better job offers. Right, if you had higher, better grades in university, you had more chances of promotion as well. So it's like, all right, so then when you look at the capitalism as per se, so we need to identify really what is a market economy, right, and what is capitalism, right? Because when people say capitalism and market economy are the same, they're not. I mean, capitalism can exist within market economy conditions, but also, like I say, socialism can exist within market economic conditions. As we have given two examples, the way the socialist solutions are being provided in Austria and Germany, in Berlin, for housing. Same thing, we're looking at the way, like, market laws worked as an example in Soviet Union. Obviously, it wasn't as all straightforward, so you kind of have to take it with a bit of like is simplified shit. Right, so let's look at what market economy is. And now I'm talking from a memory after having read a book by Adam Smith, the first guy who actually kind of realized that idea of market economy, right? And the way Adam Smith describes market economy, it's reaching the requirements of society by the best means possible. Okay, that's market economy, right? Obviously, then he talks about this bit of a profit motive, but it's not really as this kind of, if the requirements of the society can be reached by this way, then it's a better way than do it like this. Then we should really use whichever way is the best, right? We should be clear, but obviously things don't happen like this. No, they're not magical, they're not perfect, so things don't happen in perfect ways. What is capitalism? Well, essentially, capitalism is receiving the highest possible income no matter the means. Right? In this way, capitalism is actually very, very, very anti-market. Why is that? Well, because if you can receive the highest profit by essentially creating the conditions where there is no competition, whether it's through dictatorship, whether it's through paying off the government to take the laws you need to take to destroy your competition, right? Then you do it, plain and simple. Capitalist only wants the market as long as it suits him, as long as he's on the top. Like, I'm on top because I won in the market economy. In reality, capitalist just wants sole control of the market with a pretense that there is a competition. As a matter of fact, it's illegal. I think what's the name? There's actually monopoly. Yes, monopoly. Like any capitalist wants a monopoly. Very much like the game name, right? Every capitalist, monopoly is the best way for them to go. They love it. If you can gain the monopoly, if you can create a situation like, so for example, slave labor for the capitalist is perfectly good as long as it gives him the highest return, right? Most of the capitalists are quite often very good at thinking about the return right here, right now. Not very good about thinking about what's going to happen in the next 20-30 years. So again, we're talking about very limited people, not awfully smart, because they don't want market. They don't want a market economy. They want an economy where they're the monopoly and they can do whatever they want. Right? So in this sense, capitalism is anti-market economy. This is why when you look at people, both actually on the left and on the right, so it's like we're talking about both the capitalists. Although they say the people who claim to be pro-capitalism, they actually hate the market of ideas. Right? They hate to look at the alternative. All right. As soon as you say, hey guys, look, there is an alternative somewhere, they will always say, well, yeah, you just don't know things, right? Automatically they go like, hey, we don't want that. They hate to see that, hey, there is maybe a better way of doing this, or hey, somebody saying in the long run there is a better way of doing this than simply chasing for the highest profit. This is why they always ignore the ism part of the conversation. So when somebody says like, oh, this is more, we need something more socialism or a bit more communism or a bit of something else, they will start screaming, wow, it's all isms, they're horrible, they're dictatorship, they're this, they're that, right? As soon as you say, oh, how about this, and this, and they also go, no, it's all capitalism. They forget that this is still an ism. And they forget that the capitalist doesn't actually care about the market as long as he gets the biggest profit margin. I think it was Lenin who said, yes, that Lenin, who said that the capitalists are gonna sell us the rope, we're gonna hang them all. Right? So that's what it is. As soon as they get the biggest profit, they don't care. This is why you see so many big corporations that were opening up their factories in China and now India and other poor countries, where they were not only paying people and still are paying people so low wages that, to be honest, nobody in Europe can compete it. But they also open up their factories in there because they can avoid a lot of health and safety regulations. The safety that we take for granted. But the slaves in those poor countries, they don't have the rights for those safeties. This is why these companies open up there, because they can just 1 month, they can get away by not paying people 3 months of wages and then tell the people that they are fired. As soon as people start saying, hey guys, you didn't pay us for 3 months, we want something to eat, these factories just go like, yeah, you're fired, we're just gonna hire some new people, some new slaves, we'll pay them for 3 months, keep them for another 3 months free of charge, and then we just repeat the cycle. Right? That's capitalism. And as long as capitalism is concerned, slavery is the best way to go. Not a very smart way to go. The history has proven that the slavery destroys the market. The slavery destroys the profit margins. Destruction of the middle class, as it's being done right now all over the place, is what destroys the profit margins, destroys the income, destroys the markets, but they don't care. Right? So when people tell you that capitalism equals market economy, they either don't know what they're talking about, like they honestly mistaken, right? Then they were not saying they're like evil people. They just want to lie to you and just say how, yeah, you're just horrible. No, they're not evil. Like, people I know, they're not evil. They just believe in this phrase and they never really thought about it. So they're not, but they just honestly like believed in that stuff because at some point of time this phrase was like the thing and nobody really questioned it. And they refuse to question their own beliefs because it's very hard to question your own beliefs. They believe that and they go like, oh shit, they repeat this phrase like, oh, like a mantra. Oh my god. But it's very hard to question your own beliefs. I'm the same. Some beliefs I had to question sooner or later. Some beliefs have changed, not by much. But there was a process. At some point of time, like I said, a few years ago, if you look at me, like I was made a video like about capitalism and socialism. And now I'm saying like, wait a minute, well, capitalism does not equal market economy. So is the socialism does not really equal dictatorship. Well, dictatorship, they were capitalist dictatorships. But there is no conversation on this topic. There's nothing, people don't really talk about this. People kind of stand on like there's other people on the left who say stupid shit which most of the people don't want to listen to, or people on the right, and they repeat these mantras, whichever mantras they have, each one of them, and there is no real conversation about the definitions, about what is it we're talking about. Are we talking about capitalism, or are we talking about market economy? Are we talking about, oh, I'm in power, so I'm gonna destroy anybody who can come up and compete with me type of attitude? No matter, how competent they are, we're gonna create situations where it's so hard to start small businesses that could compete with us. We're gonna run as many people into, if we have the opportunity, we're gonna run as many people into this kind of minimum income position where they can't really invest into themselves. That no matter how smart, how clever they are, they cannot really advance. They cannot, there's almost no new things coming up. Or are we talking about hierarchy of competencies, as Dr. Peterson has said? Are we talking about the market of ideas? Are we talking about saying, hey, I know this sounds more like socialism rather than whatever else is, but it makes sense, it makes people, gives people homes, makes people feel secure and safe, makes people able to go out and make money and save money and be able to live a normal life, be able to spend the money instead of like being like 10 grand in debt by the time they're like 18. Right? We don't have those conversations. There's always, you either have to go with the capitalism or socialism or communism. Is like, and I'm already tired. I just say, look, guys, you know what? Call me a communist, whatever. I don't care. All right, but saying that the market economy is a prerogative of just capitalism is BS. Okay, most of the countries are not as capitalist as people want to make them out. All right, especially in Europe, the countries are more socialist than capitalist. They invest more time and money, well, at least the developed countries. So if we talk Germany, if we talk Netherlands, even if we talk France, the free education is socialist, the medical systems are more socialist all over the place, more and more of those countries are making sure that the public transport is subsidized. I think it's Austria and a couple of other little countries which are already saying that, look, you know what, as long as you come to our country, you can travel on public transport within the country for free, within the cities. I think it's within the cities. So city transport is free. Right? They're just going down that road. This is like freaking socialism 101. It's like, hey guys, you know what? You want to take a tram? Just take a tram. Don't care about the tickets. Because actually, if we look at it, running the system where you have to keep track of who gets discounts or doesn't get discounts and things like this is actually more expensive than simply running the trams and buses for free. Okay, that's how it goes, because where you go, you do the math and you say, hey, in the market of ideas, having a public transport is within the city and not having to spend money on all sorts of weird stuff that comes with it, and simply just running the public trans service is actually cheaper to simply run it than worry about the tickets. Worrying about all the people who have to walk around, check for the tickets, worry about the ticket sales, worry about this, worry about that, worry about people who get discounts, who don't get discounts, keeping track of all this, worrying about all the people who have to get the ticket for free, somebody do, somebody doesn't, and all that costs a lot of money. And they went, hey, you know what, we have our reasonable cities, we're small countries, we're just gonna make public transport free, it's just cheaper for us. Oh my God. What a weird thing to do, to have a market of ideas which says that the capitalist solution of trying to get as much profit as you can by raising the ticket prices and then forcing people to drive on freaking cars, which comes with a whole lot of other problems, over making things actually free. What a bloody socialists they are. They're so horrible socialists. I don't know. Right? Like I was giving an example of cities hiring companies on a market basis, saying, this is the market we're interested in, and getting them to build housing so that the people who live in those cities don't need to pay through the roof for their housing. Such a horrible thing to do by not letting some private building companies to sit on the building spots for years and years and years, artificially increasing the shortage of housing just so that they can rise the prices of the rents as high as they possibly can get away with. That's a novel idea. Let's take care about the majority rather than letting the minority get away with murder. Bloody socialists. Of course, doing so actually leads to the part where the city, where our taxes, the taxes people pay, are not being pumped into the pockets of the major landlords who literally create the situation of housing shortage. It's actually the market which allows to build cheaper housing and then provide the cheaper housing, saving the cities and the citizens tons of tax cash. A socialist idea of providing cheap housing by the government, which saves tons of money which they can be pumped into school, universities, public transport, medicine, medical care, the rest. Right? And the market is there. We can look at every ideas and we can look at them from different angles and we can consider them, but capitalism does not equal market economy. They're not one and the same. And can we please just stop saying that they are? As soon as we stop letting that lie, a lie which has been told by someone and picked up by others who have not been as critical in their thinking about the economics and the rest of it as they probably should have been, or they're never studied economy, and this was somebody they could believe in, and they said that lie. And can we stop repeating the lie? Capitalism is not equal market economy. Market economy does not equal to the capitalism. Market economy, as per Adam Smith, is finding the best way to resolve the requirements of the society rather than simply making the biggest income possible. Okay, thank you very much. Have a good time of the day, whichever you have. Thank you. Bye.